Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we'll talk about the tricky verb werden. Tricky and also super important. That's why it's tricky. We have werden, würden, wurden, worden, geworden. And I know that sometimes your head feels like it's going to explode. Let's take a look now. So first of all, we have unterschiedliche Bedeutungen und Funktionen. Different meanings and different functions. That's one of the reasons why it's so tricky. Second of all, we have to distinguish between werden as a full verb or Vollverb in German and a Hilfsverb, auxiliary. Because according to whether it's a Vollverb or a Hilfsverb, we have two different participle to forms. I'm sure you've seen geworden in some sentences, and sometimes we only have worden without the GE. And the reason is that sometimes it's a Vollverb and sometimes it's a Hilfsverb. Vollverb, auxiliary verb. So let's take a look now first of all. What does it mean, Vollverb and Hilfsverb? So basically a full verb is a standalone verb that you use in a sentence by itself as the main verb. Like here, Martin wird bald Vater. Martin will become a father soon. Or Felix möchte später Deutschlehrer werden. Later in life, Felix wants to become a teacher. So here we have werden in the meaning to become, and here it's a Vollverb, a standalone verb used by itself. So a Hilfsverb is basically a verb that you need to make a grammatical construction. You use this verb plus a second verb. It's usually going to be an infinitive or a participle to form, one of the two. For example, haben you can use to make the perfect construction, right? Ich habe gemacht. Or the Plusquamperfekt, ich hatte gemacht. Now it's a Hilfsverb. You can also use haben by itself. Ich habe einen Sohn. I have a son. That's the difference. Or for example, sein. Sein can also be a Vollverb. Ich bin Lehrer. I'm a teacher. It can also be a Hilfsverb. For example, again for the perfect, ich bin gekommen, Plusquamperfekt, ich war gekommen, and also for the Zustandspassiv, like der Drucker ist repariert, the printer is repaired now. The topic of today's video is werden. It can be, again, a Vollverb, and then it means to become. There'll be some examples coming up now. It can also be a Hilfsverb. For example, for the future tense, ich werde morgen nach Berlin fahren. Tomorrow I'll go to Berlin. Also for the passive, and this time it's the other passive form, the Vorgangspassiv, like the printer is being repaired. Der Drucker wird jetzt repariert. And lastly, it can also be a Hilfsverb for the Konjunktiv 2 construction, like I would do something. Ich würde etwas machen. Okay, so now that you have a clear understanding of werden as a full verb, to become, and werden as a Hilfsverb, future, passive, and Konjunktiv 2, now we can start digging way deeper into the different meanings and functions. But before we do that, we have to quickly take a look at the conjugation. So first of all, the present tense. Ich werde, du wirst, sie, es wird, wir werden, ihr werdet, sie werden. With the second and third person singular being irregular, like it's the case with many verbs. Now the Präteritum, the past tense. Ich wurde, du wurdest, sie, es wurde, wir wurden, ihr wurdet, sie wurden. So that's the Präteritum past tense form for werden, and this is more common than using the perfect tense with werden. It's both more common and also easier. We'll see why in a minute. But first of all, the Konjunktiv 2 forms, like I would do something. Here it's very, very similar than the forms on the last slide, than the Präteritum forms. All you have to do is add an Umlaut. So, ich würde, du würdest, sie, es würde, wir würden, ihr würdet, sie würden. So great, so these are the conjugations, and now there is one thing missing, and that's the participle to forms. We've talked about this on a previous slide already. There are two possible participle to forms. It's either geworden or it's just worden without the GE. If you're using werden as a full verb, it's geworden. If you're using it as an auxiliary, Hilfsverb, then it's only worden without the GE. More tips and tricks on this at the end of the video, by the way. So, now the meanings and functions. The first function is you can use werden with a noun or with an adjective. Here, werden is a full verb. So the participle to form will be geworden, right? Because there is no second verb coming. There is no infinitive or participle to form coming. It's just a noun or an adjective. And it means to become or to get. If you're serious about learning German, you should definitely check out my 27-hour-long Beginners A1 course. Join over 1,000 students that master the A1 German level with me. All details down below. It's the first link in the video description. Er möchte Arzt werden. He wants to become a doctor. Er wird bald Rentner. He will soon become a retired person. So, der Rentner is a retired person or a retiree. Er wird bald Rentner. Sie ist Mutter geworden. Here we have the perfect tense, and as you can see, the participle to form is geworden with the GE, because here we're using werden as a standalone verb, as the main verb. It's not werden plus infinitive or plus participle to. So she has become a mom. She has become a mother. Sie will reich werden. She wants to become rich. Sie ist reich geworden. She has become rich. Nächste Woche wird 13. Next week he'll turn 13. Next week he'll be 13. Optionally, Jahre alt, just like in English, years old. Nächste Woche wird 13 Jahre alt. So we can use werden plus a noun, plus an adjective, or also just plus a number, like for the age, like here. The next function is we can use it to construct the future in German. So then we always have werden plus an infinitive form. So here werden is not a Vollverb, it's a Hilfsverb. So this has important implications for the participle to form. Not in this case, because here there is no participle to forms or past tense that you can use for the future. There would be a contradiction, but we'll see other cases further on where this will be important. So, ich werde morgen nicht arbeiten. I will not work tomorrow. Irgendwann werde ich nach Australien umziehen. At some point I will move to Australia. Ich glaube, das wirst du nicht schaffen. I believe you will not manage to do that. You will not succeed. Die Ärztin sagt, sie wird leider bald sterben. That's a very sad sentence. Die Ärztin sagt, sie wird leider bald sterben. The doctor says she will unfortunately die soon. So, we have werden plus an infinitive form for the future. But the thing is, for spoken German, most of the time, we are not even using this. You can just use the present tense instead of the future tense to express that something will happen in the future. So, oft wird statt dem Futur das Präsens verwendet. Often we'll use the present tense instead of the future tense. Like, die Ärztin sagt, sie stirbt leider bald. Especially if there is like a context or an adverb like here, bald, soon, that shows you that it will happen in the future and not now or in general, then it's super common to just use the present tense and not this future construction. So it's not super important, but still good to know, werden plus infinitive, future tense. The next meaning or function is using werden in the passive construction. Here you have to use werden plus the participle to form of another verb. So here werden is the Hilfsverb, auxiliary verb. So the participle to form will be exactly worden and not geworden. Let's take a look. In Heidelberg, great city by the way, the city where I studied and lived and worked for 10 years. In Heidelberg werden leider viele Fahrräder gestohlen. So here we have werden at the second position, and at the end of the sentence we have a participle to form. It's the passive construction, a grammatical construction. So here we have werden as the Hilfsverb. In Heidelberg, unfortunately, many bikes are stolen or get stolen. Das Problem muss dringend gelöst werden. The problem has to be solved urgently. Hilfe, mein Fahrrad ist gestohlen worden. Help, my bike has been stolen. So here we have the past tense form and we have the perfect past tense form. The perfect is always sein or haben plus the participle to form of the verb. So here we have sein, mein Fahrrad ist. At the end we get the participle to form of the verb and that's here worden. Why not geworden? Because it's an auxiliary here. It's the Hilfsverb. Mein Fahrrad ist gestohlen worden. Das Problem ist endlich gelöst worden. The problem has finally been solved. Ist endlich gelöst worden, not geworden. But I have good news for you, because here it's more common to use the Präteritum rather than the perfect tense. So, oft wird statt dem Perfekt das Präteritum verwendet. It's first of all more common and second of all easier. So, it's a good idea to just use the Präteritum. Das Problem wurde endlich gelöst. Here there are only 2 verb forms, not 3, so it's way easier. And you don't have to worry about the worden or geworden part either. The problem has finally been solved. Great. Now the third function or third meaning is the conjunctive to construction. Here it means would do. I would do something, I wouldn't do something, and so on. Here we need the conjunctive to form of werden, logically. So würde, ich würde, du würdest, er würde, and so on, plus an infinitive form. Again, werden is here the Hilfsverb. But again, it's not relevant here because there is no direct past tense form of this. If you want to use the conjunctive zwei in the past tense, then you say something like ich hätte gemacht or ich wäre gekommen. So it's a different construction then. Of this directly, there is no past tense. Ich würde gern in Australien leben. I would like to live in Australia. It's a great construction using würde plus the adverb gern and then infinitive at the end of the sentence. It means I would like to do something. It expresses a wish. Wenn ich mehr Zeit hätte, würde ich Japanisch lernen. If I had more time, because hätte, that's conjunctive to of haben, würde ich Japanisch lernen. Ich würde lernen. That's conjunctive to form of lernen. Most verbs build their conjunctive to form as würde plus infinitive. Like here, ich würde lernen. If I had more time, I would study or I would learn Japanese. Das würde ich auf keinen Fall machen. I wouldn't do that under any circumstances. There's no way I would do that. Würden Sie mir bitte kurz helfen? Would you please briefly help me? So you can use the conjunctive zwei forms, as you probably know, for making very polite requests and questions. So now there are some bonus tips for you as well. First of all, is there some kind of change, like, the verb to become? You become rich, it's a change. You get ill, there is a change. So if there is a change, and if there is no infinitive, then we have a full verb. Then the participle to form is geworden. For example, ist reich geworden. So does it have the meaning to become or to get? It denotes change. And is it not a grammatical construction? Then you will need geworden for the past tense, for the perfect past tense, or just use the Präteritum. Wurde reich. It's also totally fine. On the other hand, if it's the passive construction, then we have werden as the Hilfsverb, auxiliary verb. And now you need the participle to form worden, not geworden. For the other two grammatical constructions, like for the future construction and for the conjunctive zwei construction, it doesn't matter at all because there is no direct past tense form of those constructions. But back to the passive form, if you now want to use the perfect past tense, you get the participle to form worden without ge, like das Problem ist gelöst worden, not geworden. So the pattern here is you get ist or sometimes sind for the plural. And then you get gelöst, which is any participle to form, depending on the verb that you want to use. And at the end, you always get worden. Never change it. It's always worden without any change to it. Always the same. Or you can just use, instead of the perfect tense, the other past tense form, the Präteritum form. Das Problem wurde gelöst. Way easier and also more common, to be honest. Lastly, another tip. The perfect tense of werden is always with sein. So, ich bin gestern krank geworden. Das Auto ist repariert worden. This kind of makes sense because I'm sure you know the rule that you use sein for the perfect tense for verbs that denote a change of place, first of all, and second of all, a change of state. And werden is a perfect example for a verb that indicates a change of state. Something changes, right? Ich bin krank geworden. First, I wasn't ill, but now I'm ill. Something changed. My health changed. So, for the perfect construction, you always need sein and not haben. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video with me. It was a very grammar-heavy session today. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.